Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the page, the Anxiety Princess. Welcome back. It's Sunday, yet another fulfilling episode of what we're going through, which is our mental journey, mental healing, and just mental recovery, basically. So you would have seen that I had dropped the piece about chit chat now. I think we've sort of found our identity now. I think we know exactly what we're bringing to the world. So I think Anxiety Princess is very much appropriate. So that is the name now. And obviously this week I was told that I need to take the channel a little bit further, and actually that's why I started a YouTube channel where I posted all the videos that we have discussed thus far, and I think they've been received very well. I think now we're confident and we're ready to take our story to the world. So please do subscribe. But obviously I will still be posting my video on Facebook and YouTube, but I will still be doing the content on Facebook, just posting the coping mechanism and everything that I've been doing. So I do suggest maybe you do subscribe to YouTube as well as still keep on following the page. So today is a special day. I have a special guest, someone dear to my heart, whom I love very much. It took quite a bit of convincing to do this. So this will be the first and the last time you see him on this channel. So this has been my support structure since day one. He's the person who was there when I encountered my first anxiety attack. He's been there throughout. He knows when I'm good, when I'm not good. And I suppose the topic today that we're discussing basically is just open conversations in relationships about mental illness. And I think this will sort of be a two-part thing where today I'll ask him about his experience as my supporter, and maybe just giving people out there who don't know how to support their partners the tools that they need to support their partners. And then maybe if we still have time, I'll touch on how the experience has changed me in a relationship. But if we don't have time, then I'll shoot that on Wednesday. So without any further ado, let me welcome my husband. Hey, bud.
Hi everyone. I'm happy to be here. As Tumi said, it took a bit of convincing because I'm quite camera shy. So hopefully I am able to answer the questions
Thanks,
as best as I can.
Thank you for doing this for me.
You're welcome.
So what I have sort of done is I jotted down some questions that I think are very important, as Keegan is my support structure, and just for him to share his own experience about how he felt when I started getting sick and how our relationship has basically evolved over the last year and a half, basically. So I'll jump straight into the questions, and if there's any other thing that you feel as though I should have asked him, I didn't, please feel free to drop me a message, and then I'll ask him to give his opinion, and then I'll share that on any content that I post throughout the week. So let's get into it. So the first question I have is, how did you feel when you saw me suffering, especially the first time I experienced my attack?
Yeah, so I think the first word that came to mind was helpless, because it was something new for me as well. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was going on. I know, the first time you said that it felt like a heart attack. But I think for me, the most important thing was try to stay calm, even though I didn't know what was going on, you didn't know what was going on. The last thing I wanted to do is look like I'm also panicking at that moment. So even though internally and within myself, I didn't feel calm, I think the most important thing for me was to portray that I was being as calm as possible, trying to keep you calm. Because as I said, if we were both panicking, that wouldn't have been a good situation. And I remember that day because we still went outside and we got some air, and I was just trying to calm you down and tell you, look, I mean, you don't need to stress, let's get some air. And I think through that, trying to calm you, it also kind of calmed myself as well. But it was definitely a feeling of helplessness because I wasn't sure what was going on as much as you weren't sure what was going on. But I was just trying to stay calm in the situation as best I could.
Okay. And I suppose just on what Keegan has touched on, I think we both were in a position where I was helpless to myself because obviously I did not know what was going on. We didn't know if it was a panic attack or whether I was really having a heart attack. But I think at that point in time when it's happening and I didn't know what was happening, it was very important for him to stay calm because I think it would have just been blown out of proportion if we were both in a constant state of panicking, and giving ourselves those few minutes just to adjust to what was happening. I think that was very important. So that actually helps. So I think that is the first thing, that you need to portray such a calm nature to the person who's experiencing the thing, just to give them a little bit of reassurance that everything is basically going to be okay. So I think that's very important. And then the second question is, what was the most difficult thing while we were going through this journey that you struggled with in your own journey to support me? Because you basically also had to adjust to the fact that now things were not the same, basically. So what was the most difficult thing?
I think it was the unknown, not knowing where this is going, not kind of being aware of, mental health as much as we are now. So we had no idea where this journey is taking us. And as human beings, we obviously, when the unknown is what we fear. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, what a new symptom will be, the next day, what's the next test you have to take. So I think not knowing what's going to happen, where this journey is taking us, how we're going to adapt to the journey. I think that, along with initially when I said that, being helpless, I think those things, all added to being scared and not being sure about what's next.
Okay. And I suppose, like, we just want to put it out there to couples that this journey, even to the person who's experiencing the anxiety, it's unknown. I had my good days where I was fine. I didn't have any symptom or anything. And then there were other days when it was bad. Like, I'd tell him, like, I'm feeling very anxious. I don't know what's going on. I have a headache. I have this. There were so many things. And obviously, when I went through the tests as well, that I'm always like on a constant edge about whether the doctor's going to come back with something big that we're not anticipating. So I suppose when you get into the part where you've disclosed to your partner that you are experiencing mental illness, it's very important but that your partner actually understands that you don't know what's going to happen as the person who's experiencing it. So it's just a matter of you guys both need to be committed to just face each and everything that's coming together, because you'll be dealing with it together. You'll be all exposed to it the same time. So we also don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. It could be a totally different thing, that I'm fine now, and then when I woke up tomorrow, I'm in a constant panic state, or whatever the case is. So just brace yourself that it's a journey. It's the unknown, basically. Cool. And then would you say this whole journey, it has changed our relationship in any way? And if so, has it changed it for the better? Or how has it changed it based on your experience?
Yeah. So I definitely think that it has changed our relationship for the better. I believe that we are more self-aware when it comes to mental illness. We are more educated when it comes to mental illness. And it's helped us to communicate better around mental illness and around issues like this. So while it's a tough journey, I do think that it's made us stronger in that way. It's opened our channels of communication a lot more, as I've said. And I think it's just enabled us to kind of fight this battle together as a united front.
So I suppose from my end as well, I'll just add, like, I honestly do think that our relationship has changed. I think now I'm more open when I don't like something as well, because obviously it could have an impact in my well-being. It has made us grow I think we've grown in such a way that our thinking has kind of grown. Our the way we handle different obstacles that are put in our way. I think we kind of more in tune now, and obviously we're more understanding to other people who are dealing with extreme severe depression or things like that. I think it has given us the knowledge that we need. It has provided us with a way of handling difficult conversations within the relationship. So it has changed, and I think honestly we've grown for the better, definitely. Okay, cool. What are some of the challenges do you think you went through as a couple in this journey?
Yeah, so it probably goes back to the second question that you asked me in terms of, how has it changed our relationship? Sorry, what was the challenges initially? But I definitely think it goes back to that point of, not knowing what's happening, what's going to happen next, and trying to face that challenge in our relationship together, on this journey together. But as we've become more educated, and as we've communicated to ourselves more and more, or between ourselves more and more, in terms of, what is mental illness, what does it look like, how is it affecting me, I think that has helped us a lot on this journey. It's helped us to understand the illness better, and it's also helped us to deal with the illness better in such a way that we didn't know how to deal with it initially, but now we have so many, you speak about mechanisms, now we have so many mechanisms that we use to deal with the illness. And despite the illness, we still have that joy and that happiness within our relationship, so we're not allowing it to kind of overbear or being the focal point of our relationship.
And I suppose I think for me, from my side, the biggest challenge was, I think when I started experiencing the anxiety attacks, I didn't want to do things we used to do. I didn't want to go out as much. I wanted us to stay indoors all the time, and that is merely was coming from the fact that obviously I had this fear in my head. So I didn't want to be outside. I just wanted to be in an environment that I could control. And obviously I'm very appreciative of the fact that you understood that I didn't want to do things at that point. And obviously things have turned out better now that I'm more able to go outside, I'm more able to do things. But at the beginning of it, while we're in Durban, I really did not want to go out much. He basically had to kind of almost nag and beg me to go out, even for a movie or something. I just didn't want to go out. So just understand that sometimes some people, they fear what is out there. They fear because they feel as though they're not safe out there, so it's easier for them to be at home. But I honestly think once you get a handle on your mental illness, you kind of almost try to identify situations that are not safe for you. So I think just hang in there. If it changes what the things that you guys used to do, it gets better eventually. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, cool. And then if I were, I think this is if you were to choose between the relationship before anxiety and the relationship after anxiety where we're concerned, what would you choose and why?
So I would definitely go with after, because as you said, and I've alluded to it, just in terms of us growing together, I think mental illness in general has been such a big topic, and still is, for the last probably 2 or 3 years. There's been a lot of awareness around mental illness, and I think the worst thing as a human being is to be ignorant about these things, and almost think that it won't happen to you, it won't happen to your partner. So I think when you go through this, you firstly question why do you have to go through this, but I think it grows you as a person. And if you're going through this with someone else, it grows your relationship with them. So I just think that the education and the growth that you achieve through going through something like this together is so much better, and it just equips you so much more in life than before. Now, I'm obviously not wishing this upon anyone, because I wouldn't want to wish this upon everyone. And it's probably an easy thing to say in hindsight, because while you're going through it, you might not think this. But it really is, and it's still a journey that we're going through. So it's not to say that we're over the journey. I mean, um, some, like you're saying, some days you still have bad days. So it's still something that we're constantly going through. But I think the growth and the education and what we've learned going through it, and the fact that we can relate to what's going out there and help others, has meant that I would rather choose the after relationship than the before relationship.
Definitely. I honestly think I would also choose the after relationship. And just from a perspective of emotions, I think we've incorporated emotions very well in our relationship, in the sense that I understand when he's not feeling okay emotionally, and I think you're more comfortable to show that emotional side as well. So it has helped us incorporate the emotional side into our relationship, and I think now it's easier for him as well to calm me down, especially let's say if I'm frustrated at work. He always brings me back to life, in the sense that, remember, you're going through this journey, so you need to be very mindful about things that upset you. So he's almost my voice of reason, I think. So I definitely think the journey after it has definitely grow our relationship for the better. So definitely would choose that. um and then why was it easy for you to stay or make that decision after I had my first panic attack, that you were going to stay in the relationship despite knowing that it was going to be a very challenging road that was waiting for us?
Yeah, so I guess it goes back to my earlier point about, you know sometimes we think things won't happen to us. So I know that whatever was happening at that point, that is, these things happen in life, basically. And I'm not here for a perfect life. I mean, we can all testify to having different challenges in our lives. And to me, this was just another challenge in our lives that was coming up. So it wasn't a case of, I have this challenge here, I need to get out now. It was more case, okay, we have this challenge, let's see how we can work through it together, let's go through it and deal with it together. So it's almost, part of life's challenges. And I'm not one to, just fold or run away from a challenge that might pop up, especially in our relationship. So, with that thinking, it was easy enough for me to stay in the relationship. It was more or less a no-brainer for me.
I suppose I wished that he made the decision that he did, that he would stay with me. But I suppose from another perspective, I was like, I don't want to be selfish, because obviously this is not what he signed up for. Like, you didn't sign up to be with someone who's going through mental illness. And I suppose at that point, had he decided that he was not willing to stay in a relationship, I think I would have understood, because not everybody is emotionally equipped or could have made a similar decision that you made, that you were going to see it through. But I suppose you also need to be very open and transparent at that point in time, that, are you staying? Don't string the person along in their journey, but you're not willing to see them through. It needs to be a decision that you make, that I'm going to support you emotionally through your journey. So at the same time, had he said that I can't support you through this, I think I would have understood, because you had your own stuff going on as well. So I think I would have been very understanding. But I'm glad he actually stayed. I'm glad he stayed, love. Okay, cool. What improvements have you seen with me since my initial attack in March 2019?
Yeah, so I think it might be a weird word to describe how I've seen you improve it, but I think you've embraced it. You've realized that it's part of your life, that it's part of your journey, and it's something, God has tasked on you to kind of work through with Him. So in embracing it, you've educated yourself, you've grown, and most importantly, you are educating others. and trying to help others go through this journey. Sometimes we go through things and we just keep to ourselves, and either we can't get through it, and certain things happen. We read a lot about people committing suicide, and friends and family maybe saying that they had no idea that X person has gone through this, if they only knew. So I think you've spoken about it, and that has helped you embrace it. It's helped you deal with it, and now I'm hoping that it will help others through this channel, and through you speaking out, letting those know how you're dealing with it, and what mechanisms you're using to deal with it.
No, definitely. I don't think a year ago I would have thought I'd be doing this, because I was just going through the most. But I think the minute I started accepting what was happening with me and just learning on a daily how to manage it, and just not stress about myself each and every symptom that's happening, although it's hard. But I think the moment I accepted it and started finding ways to live with it, because I don't know when it's gonna go away. I don't even know if it will ever go away. So I kind of need to incorporate it in my life and make it work for me. I think that has been the biggest, and obviously taking the step to talk about it in this manner, and just to help people who come to me and ask me what should I do in this situation. I think it has been the most improvement. There's no way a year ago I would have been doing this. There is no way. So I definitely think that has been, accepting and embracing it has been the best improvement that has happened. So I know this question was not part of the questions that I sent you, but I actually thought about it now. What did you think when I said to you I'm going on medication? Like, what was your initial thoughts to that?
So I think, look, and it was part of the education piece where we had a conversation about this, and I remember when we had the conversation about this before you made that decision. So it was something that we discussed together, and I know that you had your reservations, and it's because of the stigma of you spoke about the stigma of going on medication, antidepressants, and people are so reluctant because of the stigma around it. But what we did is we educated ourselves, you educated yourself, and we spoke about it together before we made the decision, and it was almost a decision that we made together, and we knew it was a decision. As much as we knew it was a decision we had to make at that point in time, there's still people who wouldn't do it, even though they know that that might be the only solution. So I think we spoke about it, we educated ourselves about it, we had a conversation about it, and we kind of debunked the stigma around this going on antidepressants because of the research that we did and because of the conversation we had together. So for me, it wasn't oh my word, my girlfriend or my fiance is going on antidepressants. It was more a case of I understanding why, and I understood the reason and the need to go on it. So we went into, as soon as you started taking medication, we went on to that part of the journey, being educated and knowing the purpose and knowing why it was important for your mental health.
Yeah, and I suppose if you're new to the channel, there is a complete video around the stigma on antidepressant. I think it's video number 3, which you can actually go watch. And I need to stress this out. It's very important that when you are taking that decision while in a relationship to go on medication, to have the conversation with your partner, because obviously medication has its own side effects. I think I was sick for about a week or 2. So that the person knows what you're going through and why you're going through it. And I think for us, it was at that point where it was the only thing left for me to do, because I had tried everything. He bought me a yoga mat because we're like, okay, maybe yoga is gonna help. But I think at that point, that was our only option. And as much as we were both had our reservations and fears around taking medication, looking back at it now, if I had known, probably medication would have been my first option. I take a pill every morning. He reminds me that I need to take my pill. He asks me whether I've taken my pill. He's the person who goes to the pharmacy to fetch my pills. He knows when my prescription is going up. So we've had those conversations. We've had even the conversation around where I went to the doctor this year and just asked from a perspective that we were gonna get married. Is it gonna be a problem when you start trying out for a baby? And obviously it's also important from him to know what would be the risks when we are trying to start a family. And obviously, as I've mentioned in that video, there's nothing wrong with being on the medication while you are pregnant. So have the conversation and just get some thoughts as to how the other person feels and if they can support you, because medication takes about 4 to 8 weeks to work. So that's 2 months basically of just on and off being more anxious and all that. So the person needs to know exactly what you're going through. Okay, cool. I want to go script again. Okay, cool. Do you think you are more knowledgeable about mental illness now, and what has been the source of that knowledge?
Yeah, so definitely, as I said, it's quite topical at the moment and very relevant. So I'm definitely more knowledgeable. I gained a lot of knowledge from your experience and how you've educated me. But also maybe on a personal note, I mean, you know that I play fantasy football and I'm quite invested in it. And it is a lot of people that I follow on Twitter plays fantasy. So there is quite a few people who suffers from mental health because of fantasy football, and there is a direct correlation, or there's a direct, it doesn't go well, you're not in a good mood, etc., etc. And I mean, you've seen sometimes, when things doesn't go well, it affects my mental health. So there's a lot out there, and there's a lot of people who's trying to help each other, similarly to the way that you're trying to help other people going through anxiety. I mean, there's a lot of good sources out there who can relate to what you're going through or what you may have gone through around mental illness. There's a lot of people out there who would be willing to speak to you about it, or there's material out there that you can read or podcasts that you can listen to, etc. So I am definitely much more educated on a mental health perspective, going through what I've gone with you, but also consciously not trying to let things that happens in my life, i.e. fantasy football, affect our relationship. So it's taught me to be more conscious, to be more self-aware of that, and to try and put in mechanisms myself where I don't let it affect our relationship in a negative way.
Do you think fantasy affects our relationship?
No.
Guys, fantasy football, it's part of our relationship. Fantasy football and football in general, Manchester United to be specific, it torments this person. He gets sad about it. But obviously, as he had said, I'm glad he has something that he's doing that actually makes him happy. But I joke about it to just try and break it so that he doesn't take it too much into heart, although I think he does take it to heart. But yeah, it's part and parcel of our relationship. Fantasy.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you playing fantasy in a while.
No, I do.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. But that's a good thing, because it means that I've
Yes.
to,
Yes. Manchester United, please start winning, because wow, depression. Okay, cool. Second last question now is, what do you think we have done well in incorporating mental illness into our relationship without actually it completely taking over our relationship?
Yeah. So I think the fact that we talk about it, and we're aware, and we're educated. So I think the way it may potentially take over a relationship is if you don't have this communication about it, and when you're having down days or when you're having off days, in that way it might start your partner might question you and they might start thinking it's something else, whereas it's actually, you know, your anxiety or something that you're going through mentally that's causing, you know, you to have an off day. So I think the most important thing is to educate yourself, but also to speak to each other and communicate, especially when you have those bad days, so that the other person doesn't have to, their mind doesn't have to start wondering about other things.
And I think I've been on the other side where I used to not talk, and then your mind wondered if it's something you did. And I think at the same time, my biggest fear was that I never wanted to burden him with what was going on with me, because you almost feel like this person is taking on so much, like they didn't sign up for this, but yet now they have it. It's part of their lives because they're with you, and obviously you just try to shelter the person from some of the things you're experiencing. And I actually think that's not great. The person needs to accept it as it is. And that's when, if you are staying in bed, moody, he doesn't know what's happening with you, he almost thinks like it's something that he really did. But I think an open and transparent communication has basically been the one thing that is helping us incorporate this thing well in our relationship. I honestly think there's nothing better than communicating about this and just informing your partner about each and everything that you actually are going through. Cool. And then the last question is, what advice would you give other couples out there who are in a similar situation as us and who are actually struggling to get a handle on incorporating mental illness into their own relationship?
It basically goes back to what I said. The question before is about openly communicating with each other, educating yourself, and trying to make decisions as much as possible with each other. And that comes through communication. So, for example, you know, we spoke about when you went on to medication, how we had the conversation beforehand. So, educate yourself as much as possible and speak to each other about what's going on as much as possible, so that you don't wonder and you kind of don't start unnecessary fights or disagreements. Whereas if you just speak up, you know, and let your partner know, I'm having a bad day, or before you decide to go on medication, speak about it. If you have to go, you know, to do certain tests, speak about it as the person going through it.
And be there.
Yeah, and support them as much as possible. So go with them to the doctor, go with them to, you know, if they need to go take any tests. For them, as much as for you, it will kind of put your mind at ease, because you spoke about all the tests that you went through. And even though all these tests came back and there was nothing wrong with you, you still thought there was something wrong with you. At least it gave you a level of peace of mind that at least it's not this and at least it's not that. But go through the journey with them as much as possible and support them as much as possible.
Yep. I honestly think that's the best advice we could give you guys. And just knowing that you can actually lead a normal life in a relationship with someone who's going through mental illness. And support is not just saying I support you. As Keegan would have said, he came with me when I was going through all those tests. He rearranged things at work in order to make it work. Where he couldn't go, he was always checking up on, what are you doing now? Are you fine? So support is not saying I support you, but the person almost feels like they're going through the journey on their own, basically. So I'd say support and communication is very important. And just, we want to just assure you guys that it gets better. It gets better, and you actually start leading a normal relationship. Like now, I think we're in the normal relationship after it happened, although it's still part of me and it's part of our relationship. We kind of embraced it and brought it into our relationship without actually taking the fun of being in a relationship. So thanks, Bullets. Don't go.
Thank you.
So I honestly thank you for coming, but I know this was very difficult for you to do this, but I'm really grateful. This is the first and the last time you will see my husband. I know he is not going to come back on this channel, but I suppose this will be the shortest video we have, simply because I don't have enough time to talk about everything else. So I think I will just call it there, leave it there for today, and then on Wednesday I'll do a part 2 where now I'm talking about everything I wanted to cover relationship wise. But I think it's very, very important, as the heading of this topic will be, it's very important to have open and transparent conversations in relationship about mental. We need to normalize it because there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. So I hope you guys have learned something from my experience, and I brought Keegan along just for the people now who are on the other hand of this, who are not dealing with mental illness but are supporting people and are finding it hard to support people. If you have questions for him, please feel free to drop a comment, to drop an inbox, and I'll be more than happy to pass on those questions to him. And then he can kind of give you an answer. We've been living with this thing for 1 year and 8 months now, and we've made it work. We got married, like we moved from fiance to marriage, and we're fine. So it can happen. You can build a sustainable and happy relationship while you are still living with mental illness. Any last words?
No, thank you. And as you were saying, I just hope that there's someone out there that can, being on the other side of the fence, can get some encouragement from this. And if one person or one couple uses our advice that we spoke through today, I think that would be a win for us. So thanks very much.
What do you think about me having a channel and stuff? Like when I told you I'm starting the page, what was your first?
I was very happy and I was proud, and not everyone will be able to speak about it. It takes a certain amount of courage to do it. But I think it's a great thing. And as I said, if there's only one or two people that can kind of through encouragement and can use advice and is able to relate in such a way that it will help them going forward, then it's definitely a success. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, guys. I hope you'll have a great Sunday. We're gonna unwind and relax now. I hope you'll have a fantastic day. Bye.